Well, is it time to start over? That's the question of today. That's the question I want to ask you. I'll be interested to hear your thoughts on this. It's something that I've thought for a long time. No doubt most of you have seen the video of what happened down at the Texas border yesterday with the illegals finally overrunning the Texas Guard, and this has brought everything to a new level. By the way, I don't think I said welcome to American Reversion, but welcome to American Reversion. And I think it's time we visit exactly what that means. What does reversion mean? Uh, I'll come right out and say that I don't believe there's any coming back from where our country has devolved to. I think it's important to move forward in a positive way, um, in order to ensure that our future generations are able to live in a country, one nation under God, actually, uh, in with liberty and freedom. And those things mean all sorts of things to different people, but with protection from overbearing and oppressive government, and uh, safe from invasion of those who would destroy them. That's the purpose of a country, isn't it? That the primary obligation is to ensure the life, liberty, and happiness, and the pursuit of happiness, the general welfare of the people. That doesn't mean the welfare, welfare checks. And our founders thought this same thing as they decided what to do with uh, with their times. And on the back of one of our biggest selling mugs, "Rebellion to Tyrants is Obedience to God," I remind us of what Jefferson said in the Declaration, that whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or to abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to affect their safety and happiness. And where does that right come? That right of the people, it comes from God, the good Lord. To subvert ourselves to the immoral laws of an evil governing body, as of course to live outside the will of God, except to the extent that He may have ordained this. There's been times in the past, and many of you are Bible believers, I know, and that's good. There are many times that we see that God gives a disobedient people over to evil rulers. I know. How do we? Excuse me, just a second. How do we rationalize that? I don't have the answer for that. I can go a multitude of ways on that. But the way I want to go right now is to talk about, is it over? Is it too late to actually fix the problem in our country? And I think it could be. So, herein we visit what exactly does reversion mean and what's coming. There's no doubt that we are being run by evil rulers, rulers whose primary purpose is to destroy this country as it was founded and as it was meant to be. They have systematically orchestrated since the 19 teens, a destruction of the foundation of our country, the shared values that built this country. And they've been very successful. They've been far more successful than the ones who pushed back against it or resisted it. And it's because they had an overall long-term goal that they stuck with, and they kept working at and working at and working at, and the side that wanted to resist it only resists in starts and spurts, and will occasionally get a political victory, and maybe pull things back a few feet from the dozen feet that we have gone towards communism. and then see that as a victory. And of course, it's not. It's not a victory at all. We keep sliding down the hill of decay, and that decay is led to the decline and to the collapse that we're living through right now. So what are our options, and what should we look at as a solution to this? And there's always a solution. There's always a solution. That's the first thing that we need to understand, is that for any problem there is a solution. It just depends on how far down that road of solution you want to go. Well, the first solution that I would say, obviously, is to pray individually and collectively for God's salvation of this country. Now and the Bible shows us there are instances where that has been successful, And my people will return to me, and I will bless them. That's the whole story of the Old Testament. And there are instances where it doesn't have to be the whole country. It can be a few people. For the sake of a few, the nation was saved. Okay, we don't know the will of God. We don't know the mind of God. So we can't assume anything about that. But we have to first pray. And then we have to listen and see what we think God's will is. Okay? Following God's will, you can't go wrong. You might go through what some people think is hell, but you won't go through the real hell. And follow his guidance. Our founders believed that they were following God's guidance. And I believe they were. And I think most of us believe that they were. Our country was founded on Christian principles. Doesn't matter what some say or think or teach in schools. Our Christian was, although not founded as a Christian theocracy, it was founded by Christians according to Christian principles. And of course, as we've gotten farther and farther away from that, our country has crumbled. And it's probably because we were never a nation. And I've made this point before. There's a difference between a country and a nation. In my opinion, the United States of America was never a nation, because that implies, a pretty overall a commonality of background, beliefs, faith, culture, language, all that. And we've been pretty much always an amalgamation of many different groups, which, that threatens unity, because there are always going to be those who are more willing to fight against each other than a common enemy. If you study, and I used to teach Celtic mythology and Celtic history to an extent. And one of the reasons that the Celtic tribes, you don't ever read of a Celtic empire, do you? Although the Celts were the only ones who sacked Rome at one time, when at one time the Celts got together twice. The Celtic tribes were about 150 tribes throughout Europe that were always fighting amongst each other. They were extremely independent people. See if this doesn't reflect on what we think here. Extremely independent people. This tribe over here didn't get along with that tribe and could always find issues with this other tribe, and they were always working together to band a couple or three against one. They just love to fight. It's like those of us with an Irish heritage. We can joke that the Irish will fight themselves if they can't find anybody else to fight, and that's the truth. It's just a fighting spirit. Those other powers that we know, that we think of as empires, the Roman Empire being one, they worked together with a solidarity that allowed their empire to grow. And one of the ways that they were able to take over Gaul, which was the homeland essentially of the Celtic tribes, was that the Celtic chiefs would come to the Romans and say, "Hey, if you will help me overthrow these other Celts that I hate, we'll be allies with you, and that's how they did it. You know, the Romans for the most part didn't do that. The Romans stayed Romans, and they used the proclivity of these other subgroups and their hatred for each other to take over all of them. You know, at one point, I forget what year it happened. I used to know this stuff. The Celtic tribes finally got together and they got tired of it and they went down and sacked Rome. But you know what they did? They never then established an empire of their own. They sacked Rome. They got over their momentary anger, and then they went back to all the infighting between themselves that they always did. The same thing happened with the American Indian here in the United States. You know, there's this idea, I'm going to put something up. It's a great scene. It's from the movie Bury My Heart at Wounded Knee. And it's where an American cavalry colonel is sitting down with Sitting Bull, and he is telling Sitting Bull exactly where the rabbit sits. And he's saying, you know, it's a bunch of bull. You act as if there was no violence before the white man came here, and you essentially make up lies. And you were slaughtering each other, enslaving each other for centuries before the white man ever showed up. You threw people, you got thrown off of your land, you threw other people off of their land. We're just doing the same thing. So don't use this, you know, this is sacred land. We're here. You can't come on it because this is the land that the Great Spirit gave us. Don't use that. I'm going to put that up as a freestanding video on the Patreon channel. It is worth seeing. It is 4 minutes of truth brought home. But the same thing, as I'm saying, happened with the American Indian, that they, many of the tribes, you know, they were always warring with each other. They were always driving each other off their land and taking it over. They were always slaughtering. They were always massacring each other. They were always enslaving each other. There's this idea that the American Indian lived in unity with nature and all this and with each other. It's a bunch of hogwash. It's simply not true. But that's why in many of them sided with the European settlers. You can call them invaders if you want. You know what? Hey, the history of the world is invasion by one people over another, and then who wins? It's all about that. It's all about that. Now you can say that ours was that our revolution, our independence was a little bit different, and that we believe that it was ordained by God. I am in that category. I believe that our forefathers were directed here and then inspired by God and created something that is very good until it began decaying. Because, you know why? Because people, okay, and people are corrupt. But this is why, and one tribe would side with the American invader, the European invaders, if the European settlers would help them wipe out this other tribe, and so the Europeans used these tribes against each other. Same thing. Well, that's of course what is happening in our own country right now, is we have because we are a country, not a nation. We don't have a unity of beliefs, of cultures, of anything, and so we have become fragmented, and it's impossible to hold a fragmented country together for very long. John Glubb's Fate of Empires explains that very well. So the question is, hey, would you share this? By the way, that's not the question, but that's my question. Would you share this with as many people as you can? There's a lot of people out there that need to hear this. So if you would, I appreciate it. Because that's our avenue of bringing anything positive out of this mess that our country is in right now. So the question is, what do we do? I don't believe there's any coming back from this. I don't believe that there is a unified political will in our country. I believe that half the country, or a third of the country, is actively involved and with a desire of wanting to destroy what America was supposed to be and changing it fundamentally, as we've heard. And there are some who will fight against it. I have no idea what percentage that is. And then there's the great mass in between that's too ignorant to believe anything and know much of anything because it's just too much trouble. So what do we do? My opinion, and I want to hear your opinion on it too. My opinion is that we need to, as I talk about on the preparedness channel, we need to prepare. We need to prepare to withstand what's coming, but it's important. The only way that I can see any positive path forward is to increase our political positions and powers, and that means starting locally. It means you starting with your friends and your family, and having some political sway over those political entities under whose power you live. The political war, the political fight, let me put it that way, is always preferable to what comes next if the political fight is unsuccessful. We have to do what we have to do. And while on the preparedness channel, I tell people you have to prepare for the whole thing to fall apart. On here, I want to stress that I believe that some things can be salvaged, not as the United States of America. I don't think the United States of America has long to stand. It may stand as a political entity, but it's going to lose its position in the world, and it's quickly declining into a more complete police state. We are to where it is actively inviting enemies of our country into our country while actively oppressing the citizens within. That can't be sustained. I mean, well, it can be sustained. It can be sustained not for the benefit of the citizens, though. Okay, so it's up to us to try to do something to have a political effect on what's happening. And I mentioned over on integrative preparedness that it's probably a good idea that if you don't live in a state that is politically attuned with the founding principles of our country, that you move to one. We've seen states, red states become purple as a result of outsiders moving in. The county where I live is like that. Kansas is blood red until you get to a couple of little sections, and I'm in one where we've had a lot of people come in from outside the area. A lot of people from not just California. California always gets the hammering. California, Oregon, Washington State, New York. Because it's a great place to live. The quality of life here is among the highest. I mean, the city where I live was recently voted the happiest in the United States. So people come here. There's great business, good quality of life, high standard of living, low cost of living, excellent schools, excellent everything. So people come here and then they ruin it. But try to live in a state at least, and hopefully a county as well, that reflects your political ideals, and then a work, and try to push this back. What's going to happen in this next election? I was going to make one today saying get ready for a Biden second term. I think that is totally possible. And I know that many people won't believe that, but many people wouldn't believe that Biden even had a chance the first time. And whether it has to do with cheating or whatever, it doesn't make any difference. What matters is that it happens. Okay, and we need to get over this idea that but they cheated. Okay, they cheated. Guess what? They still won, and we are living under that result. So it behooves us to do everything we can to fight back against that, doesn't it? So just as they moved into areas, if you're living in a state that isn't reflective of your values and principles, I'd suggest you move to a state that does. Out here, I wish more of you would come to my county, would turn this county back red, but you move to the states in the Midwest. Now, I don't, Illinois is a beautiful state, a lot of great people once you get south of Chicago, I'm sure there's good folks in Chicago. I know good folks in Chicago. It's too bad they live up there with the rest of them. But there's a lot of states, and pretty much for the most part, Well, I won't single out any particular geographical area of our country because there are good states all over the place. But you need to increase your political involvement. You need to increase your political influence, and that's grassroots. But you need to keep it up because one thing that our side fails in is keeping the pressure on. We occasionally get what we feel to be a victory, and then we go, "Yay, everything's taken care of," and then we go back to just not paying any attention, and that's where the other side gets back, and then they always take 10 steps for every 2 steps we were able to take back. That's because um, they have a unified belief system, and it's communism. And they keep pushing. They never stop fighting. They never stop fighting. And for a group who considers itself fighters and self-reliant and everything like that, and by that I mean the more conservative people, they just don't keep on fighting. They fight a little bit and then they go home, just like the Celtic tribes, just like the Indians. And our future may be much like the future of the Celtic tribes. Can you name one? No. Or the Indians. Can you name a successful Indian tribe now? Hmm? No, I mean you can name some tribes, but where are they? Where are they? I hope that in 50 or 100 years we're not saying where are the conservative real Americans. But we might if our side doesn't do more, and that means you. Okay, and that means you and me and the people we know and everybody. So that's the question. What are we doing? What should we do? What can we do? And what's going to happen? Okay. I'll be interested to hear your comments. Remember, America needs, is it a reversion or is it something else? And if you're not a part of it, it's not going to happen. So you all have a good day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.